Great, thanks. Thanks, Russell. So first of all, hello. I, again, like Josh, thought we had longer. So I'm going to try to make it in, 15 minutes? But I talk fast, so let me know, and I will not slow down. And there's lots of slides, so let's go. As Russell said, I'm the ECD in Seattle for Digital Kitchen. I've been working there for 6 years, as LinkedIn told me last week. And it turns out, they hired me to kind of make the kitchen more digital. To Russell's point, we've been around for 20 years. Started out as a sort of traditional agency that moved into making main titles through motion design, film, storytelling, et cetera. And essentially where we focus is sort of how emotional experiences connect with people. So essentially what everyone here does. So first of all, thank you to the school and everyone for having me. Secondly, I just wanted to say, we interviewed 18 people yesterday, and they were all really, really amazing. And I just wanted to kind of take the chance to say, Russell, you're doing a really great job out here, and it's really, really, really impressive to see that. There was a lot of themes that we kind of talked about with the students yesterday, and sort of something I wanted to talk about was this notion of doing more, doing better. And it's really exciting because I think sort of back when I was in school, people were doing what they thought was cool. People were doing, things that were subjective and sort of aesthetically cool to whoever their friend thought it was. And so I think that what was really impressive to hear the students say is, I want to do something better. I want to do something that means something. And I forget who made the point this morning, but the notion that you guys are going to make so many better things than I ever even imagined, and you're going to touch so many other things that I'm really excited about the future because of this type of thinking. That's it. So we're a little different at DK. We like to have fun. Not anyone else here doesn't like to have fun, but I laugh at my own jokes. Our culture is kind of that, we're a little bit less serious sometimes. So why user experience? It's because of people. Not these people, but you. And so these are the people we care about. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was when we talk to people about user experience and sort of the conversations we had, a lot of people think of interaction design and sort of the different disciplines that fall within user experience, I think are completely appropriate, and I love them all. But today, in my talk, what I want to talk about is sort of experience at that sort of higher level. So talking about user experience for any experience that actually touches people. So we're a little bit different. We work in entertainment and marketing pretty commonly. Again, we like to have fun. And really what DK does, we're at the intersection of story and experience. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about stories. I'm pretty sure everyone here knows what a story is, but let's just kind of remind ourselves so that we have some context. What do stories do? They are designed to interest and amuse or instruct the audience. What they really do is they sort of provide a unique human differentiator. In terms of stories are using language, and as humans, we're probably the only people on the planet that use language in the way we do and tell stories. So our stories add a language into the world. DK. We actually have a pretty rich history in actually storytelling. And so, like I said, we started making main titles for shows like 6 Feet Under and True Blood and Dexter and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what was that doing? We would take 12 hours of content, sort of episodic content, long stories, novels, et cetera, and break that down into 30 seconds, 60 seconds of sort of a story that actually told or sort of evoked an emotion in someone in an engaging way. And so we kind of found success through talking to audiences and sort of doing that. And so, but what really makes these connections and how do we connect the audience? We kind of look at this idea of context. So exploring the context of Dexter, for instance, it's a guy making breakfast, but he's also a serial killer. So eating breakfast is fairly mundane, but the thing about this is position of camera, like where people are in that sort of experience, is that you're so close to a serial killer, it's actually kind of creepy at the end of the day. And so why are we feeling that way? It's this sort of glimpse into being that close to someone who you shouldn't be close to. You're uncomfortably close. So story equals emotion, and emotion, in my belief, motivates people. And so one of the things I want to talk about is how you can use stories to motivate people today. I wanted to cite that this is not on purpose. I didn't realize there was going to be another Titanic reference, but there was one. All right. I thought I was special. But we live through multiple, if not hundreds or thousands of experiences a day. And I think as designers, we have the ability to connect and motivate people and create emotions through stories. So let's look at the other side of the puzzle. How do stories influence experiences? First, again, what is experience design? Clippy is experience design. In fact, it's just one of those things. People aren't going to consider it, but it absolutely is. It made a different experience for Microsoft Word and the whole ecosystem of Windows at the time. And corporate HTML responsive email newsletters are experience design. So I just want to sort of talk about things at the higher level, and I want everyone to start thinking this way. So let's talk about what experience design is. It's understanding people, their needs, and their motivations. And over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, Digital Kitchen has been sort of looking at spaces outside of traditional screens. So it's not really all about distilling down 12 hours of content and making 30-second show titles. How does what we did there and taking the success and taking the learnings of what we've found is successful for talking to people, and how do we translate that into other places?
All design is experience design. Nothing is off limits, nothing is isolated. Everything is connected. We play with new media, new design tools, whole design disciplines really. We put them together in interesting ways and are often surprised by the outcome. We think about how people act and interact, publicly and privately, to create new things that are rooted in their place and to make people feel like they belong. We blend the virtual and the actual to make a kind of digital physical alloy that people can use to do magical things. We invent new ways to push story that activate environments and invite people to play and explore. For the past 2 decades, we've helped the world's best storytellers tell their own stories. And we craft our experiences with the same understanding. Know what to say and what to leave unsaid.
So how do you tell a story in an experience? So that's kind of the reason I want to talk about this theory I have of ambient storytelling. So it's just a kind of half-baked theory, and not reading too much into it, but I'm probably wrong about most everything from this point forward. I define it as this idea of an unconscious narrative guided by context. And so the notion that it's guided means I don't think we'll ever be able to control it. And as designers, we actually have the ability to shape narrative. We're telling stories, and how do we influence that? So let's kind of break down the components of what we're talking about here. So ambient. What do you mean by ambient? Essentially kind of what everyone else is talking about today, that notion that we should be scared at the amount of potential things that are sort of interacting with us that we don't even think about or realize it. There's sort of this overwhelmingly complex layer of immersion of data and everything that we have the ability to use to our sort of within our toolbox of designers. But it's also sort of to say that we can help sort of define how we actually play as designers in this sort of ambient layer and actually sort of provoke and motivate people to do the things we want them to do or feel the way we want them to feel. So let's talk about stories. Traditionally, stories are thought about in a kind of linear format, a book you read from beginning to end, other than your Choose Your Own Adventures that were kind of my favorite. But first, I think what's important is that we start to make each story unique, and we look at how stories have emotional arcs. That's a double. There we go. All right. I was going to kind of explain this myself about how computers can tell stories, but there's this piece from Kurt Vonnegut that does it a lot better.
Well, there's no reason why the simple shapes of stories can't be fed into computers. They are beautiful shapes. This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Here's the very middle. Now, this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning. E stands for electricity. Now, this is an exercise in relativity, really, is the shape of the curves are what matters and not their origins. So we'll start a little above average, is why get a depressing person? We'll start, the whole thing, we call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it. All right, not copyrighted. Another story, also a beautiful curve and easily fed into a computer, called Boy Gets Girl, but it needn't be that. Just a way to remember it. Start on an average day, average person, not expecting anything to happen a day like any other. Find something wonderful, just loves it. Oh, God damn it.
I think you guys get it. One thing about sort of looking at storytelling and narrative is it's interesting because I'd never, until I saw that video, started thinking about it as something that you could look at on a graph. So it gets a little more analytical. And so the notion is that I think it's time to rethink sort of not the axis, but maybe the expectations of the arcs. Because the arcs really are what define the narratives. Because I'm bringing something new to every experience, whether I'm pissed off because someone texted me something or whatever those sort of reasons are, I'm bringing in a complete sort of different perspective. And so it's really hard as designers to help sort of shape this narrative arc. And so one of the questions that we kind of ask ourselves is, how do we guide them? You know, we're not controllers or some sort of, we don't have Xboxes and can make you do what we want. So instead of impacting the access, we impact the parameters. So one of the things in which we do that is sort of the idea of context. The environment, the user ultimately controls the experience, but through a considered design, I think we have the ability to affect context of the environment in a way that actually motivates people within the experience. So I'm going to kind of go through some things today that talk about this idea of that relationship and some of the principles that sort of come with thinking that way. One is understanding relationships, so between the elements that we're working with as designers and the environment, and that's sort of, I think, the key to the context. Everything you can think of affects the narrative and the context. Attention, focus, participation, time, your 99 problems, and your one problem. So how do we affect context? Subconsciously, I think we do it all the time. In our study of successful experiences, there's like a sort of a reoccurring theme of principles that we sort of go to. One, obviously, push the story. In order to tell a good story, you have to have a story to tell. So as designers, know your story. What is that going to be? What do you want to tell? When someone asks, when I'm looking at something that they've designed, what's the story? It's pretty simple, but most people commonly don't have an answer. Emotion is king. Emotions have the power to motivate people and to guide their experiences, so go for the emotion. Try to make someone feel something, and you will actually find that they will listen to you. Be more human. Experiences are for humans, so actually be human. Sometimes we don't want to do the things that you're asking me to do. I don't necessarily want to put my arms out and fly like an airplane when I go to the airport. So you want to create a soul to the experience and make it actually be something that I care about. Metaphors. Just the notion that metaphors can be more powerful than the literal sometimes. I think putting everything out there, your brain releases endorphins when you solve a problem. When I'm allowed to sort of solve a problem from a user perspective, it makes me feel better. That's an emotion that you can control. The other thing is just that notion of technology being transparent. I think the example of the Leap Motion was a great example. I mean, it was completely transparent, and I loved the notion of it, and it was sort of done in a way that no one was going to sort of overthink or be cautious of going up to it and interacting with it. And so I think the more you can make things magical, the more you can actually sort of keep that suspension of disbelief when it comes to experience design. So you don't necessarily want to reveal Oz. You want to let them believe in Oz. Simplify. Sometimes complexity is the enemy of experience. We like to overthink things. We like to try to put these sort of building blocks and barriers to entry, and I think sometimes the simplest idea actually is the most powerful idea. Intention matters. So just like having a story, you should have an intention to your narrative. What do you want people to do? What's your point of view? What are you trying to convey, and how do you want people to feel? For instance, some of our work at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, this idea of a North Star is the right amount of wrong. And throughout whatever touch point we're talking about, we actually try to evoke that emotion, that sort of notion of it's the right amount of wrong. I have 2 more slides I'll try to get through. People bring themselves to their experience. Let them connect, let them connect the dots. You don't have to connect them for them. People are smart, and they actually enjoy being challenged. Be surprised by the outcome. It might not be what you expected. Everyone generates their own arc. Some arcs are full, some are blips and dots, and some even go where they don't need roads. We live in the future. It's actually an amazing place to be. Like I said, every person I met with yesterday, I'm more than super amped and excited to see what you guys do. And I think you guys have the ability to create experiences that actually get to that emotional core, that make me feel something, and I can't wait to experience something that someone in this room did. I think it's our job to make sure the experiences are ones worth having. And to end it, the universe is made of stories, not of atoms. So remember that the things we're doing out there are really stories. That is our language to sort of use. Thanks.